Hi, we're going to be talking about loops. The first type of loops is the for loop. So let me present that. Okay, so we've just studied list. So let's say we're given a list of integers and we want to print each of them out by themselves on their own line. So if you remember though, from last time, if we just print the list as it is, we get a list, right? We don't get each number on their own line. So what else can you do to print each of the numbers on their own line, given what you learned in with the list previously? So think about it. Okay, so you probably would come up with something like this. Well, actually, let me just pull this up. Ah, sorry. Okay. So yeah, you can just print each number in their own print statement, right? So the first number in the list is at index 0, second number at 1, so on and so forth. So that's not too hard, right? What else did I do? Okay, sorry. Let's get rid of that. And yeah, now we print each of the numbers in their own on their own line. Okay, well, okay, what if I add a number here? And if I just run it again, well, we won't print the new number. We'll have to add an additional statement, right? What if now I actually remove that number, but I forgot to remove that additional print statement? Well, we got the our infamous list index out of range exception, right? Okay, what about another case? What if this list of number has a million numbers? Should we do this a million times? Well, that's going to take a while to type. So doing things this way is not, well, it's a very error prone, right? As we see that we add a number, so, remove a number, we have to remember to change these few lines of code. And it's really not flexible or scalable, right? If we cannot do a million numbers. So there is a better way, fortunately, and that is using for loops. Well, so and the reason, well, I mean, we already know the reason is what we really want to do is to repeat the same action. In this case, it's just printing, given each item in the list. So computer is really good at repeating things, among many other things. And in particular, for Python, um, that's um, that's using what's called a for loop. And this is the syntax. Let me type that out. So instead of doing all of this, we can just say for number in numbers. I'll just print out the number. Okay, and I'll run it. And basically, it goes through the whole list and print each number. So let's look at this a little more closely. So the first thing to notice is the for keyword. So all the for loops start with the word for. Okay, and this last thing before the colon is the list of things that we want to loop through. Okay, this it can be a list, it can be a string, and it really can be anything that's considered a sequence in Python. Okay, so that's that. The next thing to know, excuse me, is that this variable number. So, oh, well, before I get there, so remember, so this is a loop. So how many times do we go around the loop? Well, the number of times we go around the loop is determined by the number of items in this list. In this case, there are 6 of them. So this loop would be executed 6 times. Now, each time around the loop, this variable number is assigned one item from the list automatically, starting at index 0. So the first time around the loop, it gets 88. Second time around the loop, it gets 45, so on and so forth. Okay, and then what happens at each iteration or each pass over the loop? Well, this thing happens. We print that number out. Okay, so that's what this slide is trying to say. Yes, couple more things to note that this keyword in, I think we saw that last time. Um, we use that in a condition, right, to ask whether a certain number is in the list or whether a certain string is in the list. Well, this is the same keyword in, but it's different in that in a condition, the in keyword is asking the question, is an item in the list? In a for loop, the in keyword just basically means we're going through the items in the list one by one. That's all it means. Okay. Another thing is this variable that gets assigned each item in each iteration of the loop. This variable, you can name it whatever is descriptive to you, whatever is meaningful to you. So it does not have to be number. Now, the convention that I like to follow is that remember what I said about the name of the list should usually be a plural form of a word. Well, then this variable, which represents a single item in the list, I usually use the singular form of uh, the name of the list. So in this case, it's numbers, right? So that's the kind of the practice I follow as much as I can. Makes sense to me, but you can name it again to whatever descriptive and hopefully short name that you will want to use. So for example, if you want to name this like N, that's okay, and it really works the same way. It doesn't matter what you name it, as long as that's the name that you use inside your the body of the loop. Okay. Um, right. So here, let me rename this back to number first. Number. Okay. Hopefully this is intuitive. How a simple for loop works like this. Now, if you need another way to see this, then there is a little technique called loop unrolling that we can take a look at. That's another way of looking at how the loop works. So loop unrolling basically means that we repeat, literally kind of repeat the code that's in the body of the loop as many times as the number of times that this loop is going to repeat itself. So in terms of the actual um, code, if you want to write it out, this for loop can be written without a for loop, but with just these few lines, or could be many lines of code. What this means, okay, is that, okay, so the for loop, the first line is called the loop control, right? It decides what happens at the beginning of each iteration, which in most cases, it's just the, the this variable here, number, gets assigned an item from the list. So the first time it goes around the loop, this number gets assigned the first number in the list, right? And then it would go in and execute the body of the loop. Body of the loop is just what to do in each iteration. So the first time after the number variable gets the number at index 0, we go into the body and it prints that number. And then it's done for that iteration. In the second iteration, number gets assigned the number at index 1. And then the body of the loop gets executed, which again is the same every time. It's print that number. So this go on until the very last time. And if you remember, the very last time this thing happens is when we get the number at the length of the list -1, that particular index. And then again, we print out that number. But after that, the loop control decides, okay, I've gone through every number in the list and it's time that I'm done. So this is called loop unrolling. Again, it's another way of seeing how a loop works. But obviously, you don't want to write the code this way for reasons that we already lay out at the beginning. But this is just a way to help you understand.